Padilla, thank you very much for joining us tonight. And remind us, what was the question that you wanted to ask of Secretary Noem that day with her invasion forces present in Los Angeles?
Sure, Lawrence, good to be back with you. And I guess it was a couple of things. Number one, what the straw that broke the camel's back was during that press conference when Secretary Noem, soon to be former Secretary Noem, not for the first time said that the mission of the Department of Homeland Security in Los Angeles was to liberate the people of Los Angeles and California from their duly elected mayor and governor. How un-American, number one. Number two was trying to ask her to share data, because we had been getting reports in my office of the people who had been targeted, the people who had been detained, the people who had been arrested, from so many of my constituents claiming these are not the dangerous, violent criminals that this administration loves to talk so much about. There are people, including legal immigrants with work visas, even some citizens who had been detained, but yes, undocumented immigrants without violent criminal conviction history. They were hard workers, they're raising families, they're paying taxes, people who were deemed essential during the COVID pandemic and deserve to come out of the shadows, not this type of abusive treatment from ICE and CBP and others. But as you saw in the video, before I could even get a question out, I was removed from that press conference. But we've learned over the course of the last 9 months that everything we suspected has turned out to be true, and the enforcement activities that started in Los Angeles have only become more cruel, more violent as they spread across the country.
We now have MS Now's reporting from Carol Lenigan Kendallanian, which would be normally the subject of an investigation in the Senate Judiciary Committee, but that probably will not happen unless and until the Democrats win the Senate and control that committee. 300 FBI agents work mostly on national security matters, preventing terrorism attacks within the United States, all gone from the now Trump-controlled FBI. How vulnerable do you think that leads us?
Look, that's a very valid concern that we had before this unauthorized war against Iran. But now with the various ways in which Iran and its allies could potentially try to hit the United States back, it's even a higher priority question. But it's par for the course with this administration. They'll lie to our face about the economy, right? The State of the Union just a couple of weeks ago, Donald Trump claims the economy is strong when it's anything but. The cost of groceries is up. The cost of housing continues to go up. The cost of health care is spiking. You know, they're claiming our communities are safer, really, when the administration, including the Department of Justice, is so unprofessional and so misguided that career professionals are choosing to retire and choosing to leave than to follow this misdirected administration. That should tell you a whole lot. And so instead of the professional FBI agents, other staff at the Department of Justice focusing on things like drug trafficking, human trafficking, corruption, and white-collar crime, they're being redirected to, quote, immigration enforcement and really rounding up, without judicial warrants, people who are working as essential workers in so many industries and are trying to keep our economy chugging along.
Donald Trump has also said that he wants to shut down the United States Senate until the Republicans in the Senate pass a voting law that would require people to bring birth certificates, require people to bring passports with them, people who don't have passports, people who can't find their birth certificates, in order to vote in this country. And other aspects of it include delivering all sorts of voting records to Donald Trump's government. Are the Republicans going to be able to get this through the Senate?
Look, and here's where it all comes together, Lawrence. Their record, not just Trump, but the Republican majority that's been so complicit, their record is so bad, not just unpopular, truly damaging to working families across the country. Their only hope to hold on to power this November is to change the rules and rig the elections, if you will, before the balloting has begun for the general election. This SAVE Act is anything but. If it's anything, it's a Save Trump's Ass Act, with what their purpose is it's not a voter ID bill, it's a voter suppression bill, number one. It would have the effect of making it harder for eligible people to register to vote, stay registered to vote, and to actually cast their ballot, to eliminate vote by mail, which is popular amongst both Democrats and Republicans. And by the way, they continue to say the quiet part out loud. Donald Trump speaking to the House Republican Conference just yesterday or the day before, saying, pass this voter ID bill, and then we will win the November elections. That's their goal. That's their goal, to make sure that only the, quote, right people are voting, to elect, quote, the right leaders. We're not going to stand for it. I will die on the Hill to make sure it doesn't get out of the Senate. I don't think the votes are there, number one. Even if we do kill this bill in the Senate, which is my objective, I also anticipate Donald Trump trying to advance this through executive order or a trumped up state of emergency. We'll fight it every step of the way. Our voting rights are just too precious.
Senator Alex Padilla, thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Lawrence.